welcome back to today's short podcast. We'll see if this works because I don't have the opportunity to do 10-minute videos on TikTok on any of my phones anymore. But from what I gather, I can upload it. So today we get to look at when you're in this 5D, the 5-dimension consciousness. For those of you who know the term, it's us in unconditional love and neutrality. I know that the 4D community uses the word light, but we're all basically light. So when you look at it from that energetic perspective, from physicist to theoretical and quantum physicist, I still have to start my lovely existential physics book from Sabine, but I can't wait. That way I can bring that into our conversations. And so again, this dimension is an actual way that you live your life. So people who are their own agents and therefore are driven by agency will tend to be here because 5D is also known as oneness consciousness for reasons that within the 4D community follow storylines. So they follow the belief systems and that whole the bandwidth, they call it a bandwidth, but the reality is if you stay grounded, it's not a bandwidth, it is storytelling. I hear all the time the different types of narratives and also the timelines, the way that a person and a group of people, in fact, those usually involve people who are driven by belonging and or certainty, and or they are led by their obviously individual who is the agent. And this is where it's not ever good or bad. We are fragments of each other. I mean, when you look at consciousness from the philosophical perspective, since all of these areas essentially have people with different opinions, which is why, again, a 5D person is not concerned with, oh my gosh, how horrible that there are different opinions out there. No. But the 4D community keeps on referring and referencing and sharing information that limits the ability for a person to actually move beyond where they begin to have those mystical, intuitive experiences. So that's why we also integrate the 5D mystic. I bring to you the support for those of you who want to move into that higher consciousness and those who are also doing that personal development, a functional adult, a person who stays grounded. The human sciences explain everything that we need to know at this point about the mind and mindset. So mindset is everything because that's how you're going to decide moving forward in your life as you're growing up, what you're going to do. But see, here's where for those who have a drive based on belonging or certainty, their mindset isn't everything. The external is what impacts their life. So here's the other difference. So besides 5D, that self-empowered, enlightened person who wants to be in the Enlightenment Soul Age group or who is going to be in this Enlightenment Soul Age group is another individual, again, who's driven by self-agency. This is not by disconnecting to society. Actually, it's by staying grounded in the fact that we have different types of opinions. We have different ways the systems have always worked. It's, to me, common sense. As a person who has a bachelor's and a master's but has met people from all walks of life, they are grounded in reality no matter what intuitiveness or mysticism or any of that. So the people who have belonging or certainty, they usually will have a leader and they will usually also point a finger in a way of blaming, faulting, and or being in a certain type of charged state with whatever isn't going the way that their group thinks it should be or not be. So these are, again, not things that are new, by the way. I mean, we've had it our entire human history. In fact, here's where there's a lot of conversations that happen where people insult each other and are just being what I would define as not even teenagers, because teenagers can be better well behaved than the adults who think that they're actually behaving like adults. So the online world, which is my lovely world, I'm an online marketer, online entrepreneur, and ever since I have had the opportunity to be connected to the world through online, I'm like, this is amazing. I can be closer to my family even if I'm far from them, and I get to meet people, and I've made some of my most special friends. I've never met them once, and yet we have supported each other on our entrepreneurship journey. And so here's where this online world, people think there's more organization, disorder, more upset. I've had many conversations where they're like, no, but people behind the screen, they're more aggressive. People behind the screen take their opportunity to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, if somebody has the courage to say something, even if it's just because it's behind the screen, it's still a part of their own words. You choose what you think. You choose how to speak. You consistently in your day-to-day life choose things. So the fact of blaming a device, of blaming an institution, of blaming the external to a person who is driven by self-agency, to a person who is in their 5D-ness, to a person who is self-empowered, to a person who's taking ownership consciously of their life, independently from any belief system that people will use from their mouth and then not bring forth, by the way. So when I hear people using Jesus and love, I mean, to me, I've just learned how to be the polite human being that my mother taught me to be and shut up. Because the minute you use the name Jesus and love and you actually are not being kind automatically in your body, though, not just your mouth, because I can see that a person will try to be politically correct or whatever. That's not what, no. Saying being yourself, which doesn't mean going and being rude to people. It means growing up and learning how to coexist. But these are all choices. Now, the people who don't actually have an easy time making these choices consciously are the non-secure attachment individuals, particularly disorganized attachment. And then we have avoidant and ambivalent, but those are where there can be more leeway from what I've gathered. However, let's put everyone that's non-secure attachment in together and understand that their brain's way of working involves reactivity due to unresolved trauma that is deep and that we can't, if we have secure attachment, physically understand. But what we can do is provide the corrective experiences, which includes and is necessitating people who know how to be their functional adults when those individuals get in their biological root, which is a term coined by Stephen Porges, the polyvagal theory doctor. And it's termed that way because people who don't know how to access their social engagement system, their ventral vagal system, lead with their flight, fight, freeze, fawn, freeze, pause, and or essentially the red and yellow zone is how they explained it. So the red would be the sympathetic, I think the yellow would be that dorsal vagal. And when I'm interacting with people, I've noticed if they're getting charged, it's very easy, again, to notice somebody that's beginning to get pissy. Now, while, again, humanity seems to not care about understanding how they work, some of us, we actually understand that stress is important to know and to talk about. Emotions should not be suppressed. That's another thing. People learned as teenagers apparently to suppress emotions. So yeah, you might be yelling and doing and all these things. This is all a bunch of like gossip online. At 43, I don't see a difference in society than what I saw as a teenager or than what I learned in my bachelor's and master's years, which is where I'm like, let me think about that one. I see a lot of people not being their own agents. I see a lot of people pointing a finger and blaming, whether it be the institution or that theory that they think is coming true, and that people who call themselves intuitives and are charged and upset and angry. I'm like, I think you might want to clear your mind first, because if there's one thing that is clear to any person who has any common sense, is that when you start to get upset, your mind is not actually functioning as effectively, like physically. So here's where 5D will do their best to keep things grounded. We don't need to make up some narrative. We don't need to make up some story. And that's because we actually understand you are having the free will to choose. Now, if you are not able to, because you physically can't, 5DC person in the Enlightenment Soul Age group will have the adult functional Enlightenment language, love language. It's compassion and kindness, because we actually don't get into our egos. Not like, oh my God, they just offended me by saying something. No, this person obviously had something to say. They said it. No big deal. We can continue the communication, because that's exactly what happens when you're a functional adult, is you're forgiving and nuanced, because your brain, your actual physical brain, is flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, and stable. Your mind works a specific way because you put in the effort to work with your neuroplasticity. So some people need extra support. The non-secure attachment people. The secure attachment people could be pretty easy, but as teenagers, I'd say a good portion went down the path of narratives. Meantime, I hope you tune into the episode today. Have a great day.